Today we're going to do math lesson 6.6, add and subtract mixed numbers. Our essential question is, how can you add and subtract mixed numbers with unlike denominators? It's really not going to be any different than what we've been doing. You're going to have to find those equivalent fractions with common denominators, and add or subtract, you're just going to throw in a whole number there. Denise mixed 1 4/5 ounce of blue paint with 2 1/10 ounce of yellow paint. How many ounces of paint did Denise mix in all? Estimate the sum. So, if you're estimating the blue paint, you have 1 whole and 4/5. What will we round 4/5 to? 1. So 1 plus 1 then is 2. And 2 1/10. What are we going to round 1/10 to? 0. We only have 1/10 of something. We don't have very much of it. But we still have our whole number. So our estimate is going to be 4. Find a common denominator and use the common denominator to write an equivalent fraction. You can write this out on your paper just like we have been doing. 1 4/5 times something equals, and put your common denominator, 2 1/10 times something equals. So 4 and 5, what is our common denominator? Or 5 and 10, sorry. 10. Okay, so are we going to have to change this 2 1/10? Or can it stay the same?
It can stay the
same. It can stay the same. So we can do 2 1/10. Okay? How about our fifth here? What are we going to take it? Times 2. Times 2. Because we want it to be tenths here. And we have our whole number, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So this is equal to 1 8/10. And this one stays the same at 2 1/10. 8/10 plus 1/10 is
3
9/10. 1 plus 2 is 3. Just like when you're adding, you should start at your right and add across to your left. Add the fractions, then add the whole numbers. Write the answer in simplest form. Can we reduce or simplify 9/10? No. So we're going to have 3 9/10. Says the explain at the bottom of page 265 says, explain how you know whether your answer is reasonable. How do we know whether 3 9/10 is reasonable? Think back, what did we very first do? We did an estimate. And what did we get for our estimate? Is 3 9/10 close to 4? So we know it's reasonable because our estimate is close to our answer. I can compare my answer to the estimate. Since 3 9/10 is close to the estimate 4, the answer is reasonable. Okay, then question 2 is, what other common denominator could you have used? Tegan, what would have been one we could have used? Jay Sean? Faith? 10. We used 10. Braden, what was another one we could have used? 40. We could have really have used any multiple of 10. So here's how you might write that. We could have used 10, 20, 30, or any multiple of 10. Okay, we're moving on to page 266. Subtract 4 5/6 minus 2 3/4. You can also use a common denominator to find the difference of mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Estimate the difference. So 4 5/6. We're going to leave the 4, so for now, what are we going to round 5/6 to? Our benchmark, 0, 1/2, or 1? 1. 5/6 is almost a whole, isn't it? So we're going to have 4 plus 1, which makes 5, and we're subtracting. Now we have 3/4. 0, 1/2, or 1. 1. So 2 plus 1 is
3.
So we're going to get an estimate of
2.
2. Now, they very well could round that 3/4 to 1/2. It's right in the middle. Step 2. Find a common denominator. Use the common denominator to write equivalent fractions with like denominators. So if I have 4 and 5, 6, and I want to make that to be something with a common denominator, and I have 2 and 3/4, and I want to make that something with a common denominator. What would our common denominator be if we write out? Right, if we write out our multiples, we can see that our least common multiple, which would be our least common denominator, would be 12. So let's go ahead and put our whole numbers over here. Whoops. This one is a 2, and we're going to have 12 on the bottom of our fraction. What times 6 is 12? 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. What times 4 is 12?
3.
Remember, if we do it in the denominator, we've got to do it in the numerator, right? 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, here we go. 10 plus 9. That's our numerators. That would be 19 12. 4 plus 2. Oops, we're subtracting, aren't we? 10 minus 9 is 1. 12. And 4 minus 2 is 2. So this became 4 and 10 twelfths. This became 2 and 9 twelfths. And we subtracted to get 2 and 1 12. Subtract the fraction. Subtract the whole number, then write the answer in simplest form. Do we need to make anything into simplest form?
No.
So 2 and 1 12. Now we're going to work on the explain on page 266. So it asks us, how do we know whether our answer is reasonable? How do we know? It's as close to the estimate. If we compare our estimate. So what was our estimate? 2. And what did we get for our answer? 2 and 1 12. So it is close to our estimate. I can compare my answer to the estimate. Since 2 and 1 12th is close to the estimate of 2, the answer is reasonable. Use a common denominator to write equivalent fractions with like denominators, and then find the sum. Write your answer in simplest form. This is the share and show at the bottom of page 266. First of all, we've got to find a common denominator. What is our common denominator in 5 and 4? 20. And that is our least common denominator. I'm going to go down here, and we're going to do our work. Okay. What do I have to multiply 5 by to get 20? 4. Do it on the denominator. Got to do it on the numerator. 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times what is 20? 5. 5 times 3 is 15. So we have 7 and 8 20ths. 4 and 15 20ths. And we're adding. What is 15 plus 8? 23 20ths. And 7 plus 4 is 11. Can we leave that at 23 twentieths?
Nope.
No, we're going to have to put that into a mixed number. What would 23 twentieths be as a mixed number?
1 and 3 20ths.
1 and 3 20ths. Anybody have a question about how we got 1 and 3 20ths? Okay, so now we've got to take that 1 and 3 20ths, and we've got to regroup our 11 plus 1 and 3 20ths. This is right here, okay? Then we would add it to be 3 20ths. And we'd say 11 plus 1 is 12. So we would have or 12 and 3 20ths. Will that simplify any more?
No.
No, it will not. So this is number, the 2 at the bottom of page 266, 2 and 3/4 plus 3 and 3/10. Okay, so let's write that down. 2 and 3/4 plus 3 and 3/10. What is going to be our common denominator? Between 4 and 10. Okay? 20. Is that our least common denominator? Yes. Okay, so we're going to have 20 and 20, and 4 times what makes 20? 5, right? So we have 15. And 2 times 10, so we have 6. And we are adding still. So 15 plus 6 is 21 20ths. 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay. Again, we have an improper fraction. Do you remember what improper fractions were? That's when the numerator is larger than the denominator. So I can make 21 20ths to equal 1 and 1 20. I would have to add that to my whole number here. So I would have 6 and 1 20.